Alright guys, so if you watched one of my last videos that I did with Orbeez, I put Orbeez in like 5 or 6 different liquids just to see what kind of liquids they would absorb, because I was really curious if water was just the only liquid that Orbeez would absorb, and with that test I pretty much proved that was true. I think I put them in Monster, and I believe they absorbed the Monster like a little bit or something, if I remember right, but for the most part they didn't absorb anything but water. So, quite a few of you guys had this question, and I thought it was a really good one, was you wanted to know if you had water mixed with gasoline, if you put the Orbeez inside of that mixture, if the Orbeez would absorb all the water out of the gasoline. And I thought that was a really good idea, so we're going to do that. But we're also going to do it the same thing with oil. And we're also, since you guys always get mad at me for not being thorough enough, we're going to do this test in 2 different ways. The first one, we're just going to do it the way I would have normally done it, is just put gasoline and oil in a jar, put the same amount of water in there, throw the Orbeez in there, let it sit, and be done. So we're going to do it that way. And then I have a new toy, 2 of these things, and these are called magnetic stirrers. Basically all it is just like a box with a magnet on the inside, and then it comes with this little, I think they call this a stirring pill, and this just sticks to this, and you have this knob. Whenever you turn it on, it'll stir things for you. You just take something like a beaker full of water, put it over top of the middle, and then you take your pill, throw it in there, it sticks to the bottom, you turn this thing on, and you can see that it'll just sit here and spin and stir your liquids for you. So, aside from having both of them in the jars, we're gonna have both of them in the jars, and I have two of these sets. So we're gonna have one of these filled with the gas and water in the Orbeez, constantly being stirred, and the other one filled with the oil and the water and the Orbeez, constantly being stirred. And then we're gonna let those sit for I'm thinking probably 2 hours or so. I think that'll be about the maximum time that Orbeez should take to absorb water. And then we'll test it and see. Alright, so let's start getting everything set up. These beakers go up to 500 milliliters, so I think I'm just going to do 200 milliliters of each liquid. So we'll start with oil, and we have our jar, put 200, dump that in here, so we have 200 milliliters of oil in here, put 200 back in here. We'll use this one to put 200 milliliters of water, 200 milliliters of water, and you can see that instantly separates. 200 milliliters, and then we have our another jar, 200 milliliters of water, and we got some fresh 87 octane, 200 milliliters right there. Oh wow, 200 more. That's pretty much right on 200. So we'll fill this up to 400, and then of course we need a control. We'll just be full of water. All right, now as you can see, both of the liquids both sit on top of the water. So the water's at the bottom of both of them. I don't know if the Orbeez will sink to the bottom or not, but we'll see in a second. Both of our stirring devices. And then we have both of our samples in our jars. Both of the stirring pills in here. They both look like they're in the middle pretty much. I'll start with the control. I'm thinking 2 caps full of Orbeez should be enough. We'll put 2 caps full in each one. All right, now everything is mixed. Everything has Orbeez. And as you can tell, the Orbeez obviously did sink to the bottom, especially like on this oil one, but it looks like they are coated in oil. So will that oil float to the top with the rest of it, and the Orbeez will start absorbing the water? Who knows? All the ones that are in the gas look like the same. They look like they've kind of clumped up like they're coated in gas. And I know you probably can't see it, but if I sit here and like tap on this glass, I can kind of see the gas bubbles coming back up and separating. So maybe they'll sit there and separate. And I'm just going to leave the control kind of back here in the back, since it's not super important because we already know what's going to happen to it. Only thing left to do is we're going to turn these things on. And we'll come back in about 2 hours. Alright guys, so it's been about 2 hours. So let's turn these things off. We're going to look at each one up close individually, but first I'm just going to let's just take a look first and get my first impressions. Obviously you can see this one where the oil has been getting stirred up. It's obviously like really thick and milky, just like the oil would be inside of a car that had a blown head gasket and it had coolant and oil mixed together inside the engine. This is pretty much exactly what the oil would look like, just real like milky and frothy. So that's not really a surprise. I am kind of surprised that even if you look at the bottom where all the Orbeez are, that they didn't absorb. It doesn't look like they absorbed any water whatsoever. That's a little surprising, especially considering that right here sitting next to it, in the jar where the oil and water were just sitting undisturbed, if you look at just the oil that's in the jar, it looks like it's perfectly separated. There's also ones on the bottom that haven't grown, but the ones that are in the jar that have grown look like they've grown to full capacity. The two with the gas that was sitting in this jar completely undisturbed. The Orbeez obviously did fill up with water, but they just all look like they're about half full or so. But I'm assuming what is on the top, I'm assuming that is going to be pure gas on the top. I don't know. They just kind of look like they're half full. And the ones that are here in this beaker, I can't tell if they're different sizes. They probably look about the same size. For some reason, whenever they're in this beaker, these Orbeez look bigger. But as you can tell, the Orbeez have grown so much that they, almost came out of the top. And whenever I came in here, whenever I just turned this magnetic stirrer off, you could see that if you watched up close, you could see that the little pill thing was in there spinning, but it wasn't doing anything because it was so dense with Orbeez. Floating on top of the Orbeez, it appears to be pure gas. I don't see any water droplets in it or anything. Let's get an up close look. All right, and just as a little note before we get started, this is the jar, was our control jar. As you can see, these Orbeez are all full size. So we definitely left the Orbeez in all of our liquids long enough for them to fully engorge themselves in water. All right, now here's our close look at the oil. So as I tilt this kind of back, you can see these Orbeez, I'm trying not to spill it here. You can see these Orbeez down here didn't absorb anything. So I'm assuming these kind of got coated in oil or whatever. But whenever you look inside the jar, see if I can do it without spilling. You can kind of see, all the Orbeez that did absorb water. And then whenever you kind of tilt it to the side here, you can see how pure this oil looks. Now, I don't really have any way to definitively test this other than just by looking at it, but just by looking at it, you can see, you don't see water droplets, you don't see nothing. If it's not a success, it's extremely close to a success. And here's the oil that had been getting stirred for 2 hours. You can see, even though it's been sitting, you can kind of see the oil starting to separate a little bit, but all this up here is still mixed together, and this will probably never separate and be back to normal. But you can also see on the bottom here, you can see that all the Orbeez never even absorbed anything. So that was a complete failure. So it looks like if you have water in your oil that you want to get out with Orbeez, do not stir it. Just put it in there and just let them work their magic. And here we have the 2 jars that were full of the gasoline and water with the Orbeez. Now that these are kind of side by side, you can tell me what you think in the comments, but I think these Orbeez are pretty much the same size. So from the looks of it, it doesn't really seem like stirring it had a huge effect, because these are kind of taller, but also this jar is wider, so the same amount of Orbeez probably absorbed about the same amount of water either way. So it kind of looks like the stirring was a little bit unnecessary. But the good part is that it does look like a success both ways. So I guess this really does work. All right, now it's time for the test that you didn't even know that you were waiting for. So I know I have to do this test because I know everyone would yell at me in the comments if I didn't. We put the gas in the beaker, we put water in it, and then the Orbeez absorbed the water out of the gas. So now we need to test if the gas is still flammable. So I think it's pretty obvious. I'm gonna dump some of the gas onto this brick and try to light it on fire. See if it works. Let's just dump out a little bit. Now that'll work. 3, 2, 1. Huh. That actually worked pretty good. All right, now let's let that dry and we'll try the other jar. I don't know if that's dry or not. We'll just let it burn off. Come on. What a first world problem. I'm waiting for my gas to burn out so that I can burn more gas. Let's go again. Here we go again. It works both times. Oh, that's pretty smoky. All right, so what do we learn? If you have water in your gas and you put Orbeez into it, the Orbeez will absorb the water out of the gas, and as far as I can tell, there's no more water in the gas, or it's at least still flammable. I don't really have a way to test if it's 100% pure like it was when it first came out of the gas can, but from what I see, it seems like there's an extremely low chance of there being any water, or there just being a little tiny bit of water. And as for the oil, if you ever get water in your oil, just put some Orbeez in there and then it'll absorb the water out, but don't stir it or else it'll end up like a milky froth. Thank you guys so much for requesting this video. This was actually really interesting. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.